He's recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mobile peer-to-peer payment applications are growing more popular and are expected to facilitate transactions worth over $1 trillion this year. Unfortunately, these platforms, which include apps such as Venmo, Zelle, PayPal, and CashApp, are also rife with scammers and fraudsters seeking to steal from hardworking consumers. Members of this committee, including the chairman, Senator Reid, Senator Warren, and myself, have led letters to banks, regulators, and the apps themselves urging them to adopt better user protections. And I was pleased to finally see some action when the CFPB in November proposed a rule establishing supervisory authority over large non-banks with person-to-person payment apps. And I know Zelle has made some changes to its own policies. Ms. Sanchez-Adams, can you comment on these actions taken so far and tell the committee what next steps we should consider to take to better protect consumers from scams and fraud on P2P apps?
Yes, thank you, Senator, for the question. So the CFPB's proposed rule would allow them to supervise these institutions, like CashApp, the PayPal, the Venmo, EWS, particular to seeing whether they're reimbursing consumers for unauthorized fraud and their policies for reimbursing consumers when they're fraudulently induced payments. So basically to check their policies and procedures and make sure they're complying with the law. And that's extremely important, and we support that rule. What more can we take? What more actions can we take is to make sure that the law actually protects victims of fraudulently induced payments. So that would be amending the EFTA or allowing the CFPB through rulemaking to do so, and that's one huge step that we can take.
Okay. Now, according to the 2017 American Community Survey, nearly 26 million people, which is roughly 9% of the United States population, have limited English proficiency. And we know consumers who lack access to information are prime targets for predatory behavior. Can you talk about the unique vulnerabilities consumers with limited English proficiency face when combating scams?
I mean, absolutely. You name them. The fact that, we talked about consumer education, consumer disclosure, knowing products, knowing protection. Well, one, if you don't speak the language or read the language, how are you going to know that? And two, if it's buried in fine print or in some contract that you never see, you won't know those either. So absolutely that impacts them. And then there are certain, I would say that there are certain payment systems that target low-income consumers and minorities because they are pushed out of the banking system. And so they are targeting these folks, and they are more rife with fraud. And so they really need to be doing more to protect these consumers.
In addition to being disproportionately targeted by a wider variety of scams, LEP consumers can also face difficulties in accessing anti-scam and fraud resources. For instance, there is no CFPB online complaint system in Spanish, or for that fact in any other language. And IC3, the FBI's website that provides education resources to protect individuals from cybercrimes and allows victims to report internet crimes, is only available in English. Would making more anti-fraud and scam resources available in other languages help protect IEP consumers?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Talking about different groups of consumers, Mr. Breo, another group often targeted by scammers are seniors. Crimes targeting older Americans were up 84% in 2022 over the previous year. And furthermore, older adults report higher median losses than younger adults. According to the Federal Trade Commission, the median loss from fraud was $1,750 for those 80 years old or older, compared to $548 for those in the 20 to 29 age group. These losses can have significant impacts on the financial security of older Americans as they rely on these critical funds for their retirement. What sort of procedures or training should financial institutions be implementing to improve the institution's abilities to detect and prevent fraud committed against seniors?
Thank you for the question, Senator. So seniors are uniquely vulnerable to fraud. They are inviting targets for scammers because they often have access to more assets that the scammers can steal because they've been working for their entire lifetime. Unfortunately, they also have less ability to recover. They don't have as much time to go back to work and recover these lost funds. So they do present uniquely vulnerable type of victim. In terms of what institutions can do, number one, I would say is make sure that you are training all of your employees to understand that fraud victims are not the ones who are at fault. Too often we have a stigma against older Americans who report this. We wonder, how can you be so stupid? You fell for this. Didn't you know better? Those are not, as it was mentioned earlier, those are not terms we use for victims of violent crime, and I don't think we should use that for older Americans or, frankly, any scam victim. So I think training of frontline employees to show some grace when they get these kinds of questions is important. I think also we need to be able to provide anti-fraud services to people in ways that don't involve technology. Unfortunately, many older Americans often have difficulty using advanced technology. They actually want a real person to speak with. They want somebody in a bank branch they can go and talk to about that. And those avenues are often more difficult or more costly for all consumers, but in particularly older Americans to access. So certainly if there are policies that could make that avenue of getting fraud redressed easier for older Americans is another step I would encourage you to take.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Menendez. Senator Tillis of North Carolina is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you all for being here. Mr. Benda, you mentioned the need for a partnership. Give me just a quick back-of-the-napkin list of people who should be at the table, particularly the ones who should be that aren't right now.
Thank you,